So here's a little surprise, quite by luck. A colleague of mine in this business, another fellow who runs a conference, decided that he had a few days available. We're kind of pals in the business. Some of us are quite competitive, others are more collegial. And this is Michael Hawley. He runs a fabulous conference out of Monterey every spring called the EG Conference. And I must say, looking at his CV, some people who run conferences are really smart, myself excluded. Michael has an extensive history in new media. He spent a lot of time designing software. He worked at the Media Lab. He was also a member of the US bobsled and luge teams. He created the first digital dictionary, produced the world's largest paper book, is also a yo-yo champion, and a pretty good piano player. So I'm going to ask him to come out here and tinkle the old ivories. This is Michael Hawley.
Thanks, Moses. Thanks. Thank you very much. It's such a treat to be here. Believe it or not, my doctor is Mark Laponis. How's that for a small world? I feel like I should be studying up for my colonoscopy. I hear it's not too difficult, just a little bit of reading. So as Moses mentioned, we're sort of pals in the conference racket. I was talking to a friend of mine, Eric Kuhn, who's an architect, and he's fond of saying that humanity's greatest work of art is the city. And I really believe that, especially when it's done right. We love to be clustered together. We're touchy-feely species. And to me, gatherings like this are enormously special. This is the music of civilization. So many talents, so many energies that all nourish our culture. And there are all too few of these kinds of events. And we've been running, I think I've got a slide with our little gratuitous logo on it, our little conference EG for about 6 years. IdeaCity is now 13, I think. Those are like dog years, and some are more dogged than others. Anyway, I just simply offered to Moses that if there was a gap in the program that he needed to fill, call me up and I'd do something. So I've got a little piano piece to play for you. It's 4 minutes long, and I thought I'd give you just a tiny bit of context. It's really a rather special piece. Almost exactly 61 years ago today, not quite today, but pretty close, Operation Barbarossa. And for those who've forgotten history, that had nothing to do with the Ferrari factory. It was a big deal. On that day, Hitler invaded Russia, a non-trivial invasion. This was the headline in the New York Times. Almost 4 million troops, 2,000 miles of Russian front. This was not a happy turn of events for the free world. The news that was unfolding in Moscow reached Huntington, Long Island. And when the New York Times was delivered into these hands, I don't imagine he was very happy about the news. The picture's not reversed. The wedding ring is on the right hand, which was a Russian custom. Those are the hands of Sergei Rachmaninoff, who's one of my music heroes. He had fled Russia before the Bolshevik Revolution, ran out of the country on a steam train with his beautiful wife, their daughter, one suitcase, and a tiny bag of music. He was a man without a country, and he never made it back to Russia. The Bolsheviks banned his music, so who was, once the greatest musician in Russia, was no longer heard in the hall in Leningrad, formerly St. Petersburg. So he spent most of his time wandering and then eventually settled into the United States. He was a kind of a rare member of a triple threat club, I like to call them. There aren't very many of these guys. Bach in the 1700s, Liszt in the 1800s, Bernstein in the 20th century. These are people who were outstanding performers, incredible conductors, extraordinary composers, maybe quadruple threat. They were also all wonderful teachers. And Rachmaninoff is one of those very few who just knocked it out of the park in every category. But in the United States, he couldn't really conduct because he couldn't speak English. So he wound up getting drawn into a career as a pianist. Anyway, on that morning when he read the New York Times in Long Island, these are some pictures of Rachmaninoff otherwise playing for his granddaughter. He was kind of a dour fellow. Igor Stravinsky used to call him a 6.5-foot scowl. And that wasn't entirely fair. He was only 6'4". So anyway, what's special to me about this piece is it turned out to be the very last piece of music that Rachmaninoff wrote. And he wrote it about 3 weeks after he got the dreadful news that Russia was getting clobbered. Probably by the time he started putting the music pen to paper, the little village where he wrote the second piano concerto and the third piano concerto, Ivanovska, was being trampled by Nazis. I wouldn't want to speculate more than that, but it's impossible for me to think that these things weren't on his mind. So what kind of piece did he write? So last piece he performed, last piece he recorded. It was a lullaby, a song by Tchaikovsky. It's a complicated little thing. I think we've got the music here. It's about 4 minutes, and I just learned it a couple weeks ago. I haven't played it for anybody yet, so you're not anybody. I hope you like it. We can go, right? Thanks.
That's so good.
What a treat.
That's
What a
so good.
beautiful hall.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Make love to the
Yeah. What are your dates, Michael, for next April?
April 18th through 20th.
All right.
What are yours?
The 18th, 19th, 20th?
Of
19th, 20th, and
21.
21. Right.
Great. Well, we'll be here.
Yeah,
Maybe you'll be
and
there.
I'm hoping to visit your conference. And we haven't worked it out yet, but if there are people who actually might want to go to both of them, we're very keen to sort of stimulate this kind of thing, and we'll work out some kind of little pricing advantage for people, won't we? That's great. Michael, thank you so much. Yeah.